Hey sports fans, it's me, Cloth Shack, here to tell you about a show that I really like, and it's called... Adventure time! Come on, grab your friends, we'll go to many distant lands with Jake the dog and Finn the human, the fun will never end. It's adventure time! Adventure Time is a kids' cartoon created by Pendleton Ward that ran from 2010 to 2018 about wacky adventures in a fantasy world with our heroes Finn the Human and Jake the Dog, two best friends who live in a treehouse in the magical land of Oo, which contains several different kingdoms such as the Candy Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom, and the Fire Kingdom, each run by a monarch. The Candy Kingdom is run by Princess Bubblegum, the Ice Kingdom is run by the Ice King, the Fire Kingdom is run by the Fire King, and later the Fire Princess, etc., etc. On a surface level, Adventure Time is just a harmless, surreal comedy fantasy show with occasionally serious moments that still keeps it lighthearted. In reality, Adventure Time is a deep and layered tale about change, war, the apocalypse, the cyclicality of time, loss of innocence, growing up, and the struggles of romance. One of my favourite genres of cartoons is kid shows with a serious overarching plot. Stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Over the Garden Wall, Young Justice, Gravity Falls, Samurai Jack, and Teen Titans are all great examples of this, but I think Adventure Time pulls it off the best because of how it's presented. All the previous shows mentioned are mostly grounded in a reality that, while having fantasy and/or sci-fi elements, still take place in a world that is recognizable or previously recognizable to our own. Adventure Time, however, takes place in the land of Oo, a wondrous, colourful world with a large host of fantastical creatures that look nothing like anything from our reality, ranging from a walking, talking peppermint, an oblong flying unicorn thing that speaks Korean, a heart, and a goose, and a flying ball of lumps. There are exceptions to that, of course. There are several characters who look like humans, with there even being several actual humans aside from Finn later in the series. Most of the other characters are just oddly designed fantasy creatures. Speaking of the characters, let's get into them. As mentioned previously, Adventure Time is filled with dozens of lovable, funny, complex, but also terrifying, evil, and cruel characters that inhabit Oo and its surrounding areas. For the sake of keeping this video under 10 minutes, I'll only explain the very important ones. Finn the Human, voiced by Jeremy Shada, is our lovable protagonist. He is thought to be the last human left in Oo, and at the beginning of the series is a giant goofball who loves going on merry adventures throughout Oo, and also has a huge crush on Princess Bubblegum, who he regularly has to save from the Ice King. As the series goes on, Finn gets older and goes through some serious losses and matures, and goes from a goofball to a selfless, noble hero. Jake the dog, voiced by John DiMaggio, is Finn's laid-back adoptive brother and sidekick, who is a yellow dog thing with stretchy powers, who acts as a voice of reason and a sort of mentor to Finn, always being by his side during their various expeditions. Jake's development is similar to Finn's. As the series goes on, Jake goes from what he was at the beginning of the series to something much more mature. However, Jake goes from a laid-back mentor figure to a devoted father and husband. Ice King, real name Simon Petrikov and voiced by the legendary Tom Kenny, is the king of the Ice Kingdom with magical ice powers, who is obsessed with kidnapping princesses, usually Princess Bubblegum, to make them his wife, only to be thwarted by Finn and Jake. Initially presented as this one-dimensional crazy villain, Ice King is slowly revealed to be one of the most layered, sympathetic, and tragic characters in the whole series, losing his fiancée to the Great Mushroom War, we'll touch on that later, and having been cursed by his magical crown to go insane. Princess Bonabelle Bubblegum, voiced by Hinded Walsh, is the current incarnation of the Candy Elemental and the ruler of the Candy Kingdom. She is a technological and engineering genius and Finn's first love interest, who also acts as a quest giver for Finn and Jake early in the series. She is also the one to introduce them to the Enchiridion and the Lich. However, she progressively gets a lot darker as the show goes on. She also later becomes Marceline's girlfriend. Marceline the Vampire Queen, real name Marceline Abadir and voiced by Olivia Olson, is a half-demon, half-vampire, and one of the survivors of the Mushroom War, along with the Ice King. Initially presented as mischievous, fearless, and chaotic, her softer side is explored in multiple episodes, revealing her to also be very emotional and sentimental, especially towards her stuffed animal Hambo, which was given to her by Simon. Also, she plays the bass, so that's how you know she rocks. And finally, the Lich, the villain of the series, and voiced by Ron Perlman. The Lich is a cosmic entity as old as existence and the actual personification of death itself, who is awakened by the bombings of the Great Mushroom War. He is driven by one goal and one goal only, to destroy all life, in honor of the deity Golb, whom he describes himself as the last scholar of. There are multiple other important characters in the show, but if I sat here and explained them all to you, we'd be here till Christmas. So let's just move on and get into the... The plot of Adventure Time is very long and complex. Kidding. So when I say that the plot of Adventure Time is very long and complex, I mean that there's so much filler! Of the 282 episodes of the show that there are, only 176 of them are necessary viewing to understand the entire show. The filler is so prevalent that there is an entire GitHub repository that lists every episode that is important to the plot, and even then, of the 176 episodes listed, 63 of them are marked as only somewhat important, meaning that only 113 episodes of this 282 episode show are vital to understand it. That's about 40% of the whole show, which is why it's so hard to explain it, but I'm going to try my damn best to do so. This will be heavily abridged. As mentioned previously, Adventure Time takes place in the land of Ooo, which is actually what's left of planet Earth after a nuclear war known as the Great Mushroom War wiped out nearly all of humanity and awakened the Lich. At around the same time, a blue comet hits the Earth as well and causes a giant crater to open in the side. Simon Petrikov, an antiquarian and archaeologist who survived the war due to a magical crown he purchased, finds Marceline in the wasteland, who has survived due to being a half-demon. He adopts her and gives her Hambo, which she would cherish for her whole life. However, the crown starts eroding his sanity and he is forced to abandon Marceline, later becoming the Ice King. 900 years later, two humans who have been living on Hub Island, an island that the remaining humans who survived the Mushroom War live on, Minerva Campbell and Martin Mertens, give birth to Finn Mertens. Unbeknownst to them, Finn is actually the current reincarnation of the comet that hit the Earth nearly 1,000 years ago. However, Martin is forced to escape Hub Island and accidentally loses Finn on a raft where he drifts away to Ooo and is found by two sapient dogs mutated by the Mushroom War, Joshua and Margaret. Around the same time, Joshua is infected by a being called Warren Ampersand, who is trying to pass on his stretchy powers, and Joshua gives birth to Jake from a boil on his head caused by the infection.
Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mommy. It's so nice to be here with you now.
Fast forward another 13 or so years, and Finn and Jake are now two adventurers who live in a massive treehouse, going around Ooo and helping out random people. During their travels, they have met Marceline, who is now a half-demon, half-vampire, Ice King, Billy, Susan Strong, Tree Trunks, Princess Bubblegum, and several other important characters. In episode 5, which, according to the Adventure Time important episode list, is where you're supposed to start watching the series, Finn and Jake are taught about a book called The Enchiridion by Princess Bubblegum. After getting through several trials, they obtain the book, which will become important later. Lots of filler happens, and then Finn and Jake are introduced by Princess Bubblegum to the Lich, who was imprisoned in amber by Billy. Unfortunately, the Lich is able to escape his imprisonment after hypnotizing a snail and having it crack open the amber. The Lich escapes to his lair and his well of power to recharge his magic, and Finn and Jake go after him. Meanwhile, Ice King kidnaps Princess Bubblegum again, going after Finn and Jake to glow. After an epic battle involving sweaters, Finn defeats the Lich, and all seems well, until Ice King, who was watching the fight, drops Princess Bubblegum in the well.
Sorry for all of this. I love you, and I've decided to set you free. Go free! Oops, I've got the dropsies.
Princess Bubblegum is able to be saved, but is now 13 instead of 18. Since Bubblegum is too young to reign over the Candy Kingdom, her creation, Lemon Grab, rules in her place.
Unacceptable condition! Unacceptable!
This isn't really important, but Lemon Grab is too iconic to not mention. Then some of this happens. During this filler, the Lich, who, instead of having been defeated, is now possessing the snail that he hypnotized previously, kills Billy and takes over his body, and also tricks Finn into giving a bear he hypnotized the Enchiridion. The Lich reveals himself to Finn again, and uses the Enchiridion to open a portal to the multiverse, which he, Finn, and Jake enter, and meet Prismo, the best character. Prismo is a wishmaster, and the Lich wishes for the extinction of all life. However, Finn immediately wishes after that the Lich never existed, which creates an alternate universe known as Farm World, where the Mushroom War never happened. In Farm World, an alternate version of Finn goes to sell his mule, but falls into a hole on the way and finds the skeleton of alternate Simon Petrikov next to a frozen mushroom bomb, and guarded by an alternate Marceline. Because the Mushroom War is what awoke the Lich, if Simon had frozen the bomb before it exploded and the war never happened, the Lich would not have awoken. Finn then steals the ice crown from Marceline and attempts to sell it, however it gets stolen by a local criminal. Finn promises Marceline he will get it back. Finn gets it back, obviously, and puts the crown on, becoming his universe's Ice King as he lays waste to the criminals who were now burning down the market. He accidentally sets off the mushroom bomb himself and causes the Mushroom War, which then causes Farm World Jake to become mutated by the bomb and becoming the Farm World Lich. Now this takes place in an alternate universe, and it all gets undone, meaning this was for nothing. And then there's more! By now you've probably noticed a trend: intense plot-driven episodes followed by several hearty servings of... Which makes sense once you realize that Rebecca Sugar helped write and storyboard a lot of these episodes. You know what Rebecca Sugar also made? Steven Universe. And what is Steven Universe notorious for? I'm not usually one to point fingers, but... Anyway, filler happens, Finn gets the grass sword, and then Finn and Jake go to a place in space called the Citadel to find Finn's dad, Martin. And oh look who's here, it's the Lich. Anyway, I need to wrap this up, so I'm gonna speedrun explaining to the end of Adventure Time. Okay, go. Finn and Jake free Martin from the Citadel, but oh no, he ditches them because he sucks. This also frees everyone else in the Citadel, including the Lich, who does the funny thing.
Fall.
But then he gets hit with the blood of the Guardian, and then he becomes this big baby thing called Sweet Pea, who gets adopted by Tree Trunks and her husband, Mr. Pig. Filler happens, and then the Islands miniseries happens, where Finn, Jake, and Susan Strong go out and find what happened to the humans. That sounds really interesting, but I'm kinda on the clock here, so moving on. Ice King's fiancée, Betty, returns after he temporarily stops being Ice King and opens the time portal, pulling Betty through, and she vows to find a cure to Ice King's madness. Oh look, it's Gumball, Princess Bubblegum's evil uncle. He forms Gumbaldia, and the Candy Kingdom go to war. Betty, now a witch due to some really convoluted plot point that will take a while to explain, summons Golb, the embodiment of chaos. Finn, Ice King, and Betty are consumed by Golb, which reverts Ice King back to Simon and Betty back to non-witch Betty. The Ice Crown, also reverts back to its true form, a wish-granting thing, and Betty uses it to merge with Golb, and disappears so that Golb can't do anything else. Also, Finn and Jake's treehouse gets destroyed, but is replaced by Fern. Crap, I didn't explain who Fern is. Fern is the result of the merging of Finn's grass sword and the Finn sword together. The Finn sword was made as a result of a paradox involving Finn being evaporated or something. And then the show ends. Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees, we can wander through the forest. So in case you couldn't tell, I really like Adventure Time. I think it's a neat, original concept that tells a really interesting story that I completely butchered. The characters are endearing, the writing is good, if a little fillery, Rebecca. The animation is simple, but at times beautiful. It's got emotional moments, it's got Prismo. I really can't explain how I feel about this show, because it just means so much to me, and anything I say could not do it justice. There are some problems, of course. The is a bit much, even more so than Steven Universe, but even then, it's not boring filler like Steven Universe. Some of my favourite episodes are nothing but filler, like Card Wars, Dungeon Train, and Guardians of Sunshine, and unlike Steven Universe, it doesn't switch from important plot elements to filler in between episodes. They let the important stuff have their stories, and once they're done, do some filler. Whereas in Steven Universe, it goes from a major character actually dying to Steven helping Mayor Dewey run for re-election. In case you couldn't tell, I don't like Steven Universe. Another issue I have with the show is how short the episodes are. I'm fine with one-off filler episodes being 11 minutes, but you can't have some of the most important episodes in the whole show be 11 minutes long. Aside from the finale, which is 44 minutes long, every episode is 11 minutes, which is not a lot of time for a show this complex. This is why the show is 10 seasons and 282 episodes long, because the crew didn't have much time to tell their stories in one episode, while also intercut with all the filler that Cartoon Network wanted. Aside from that though, there's nothing else I can really think of that I don't like about the show. Thank you for watching this silly little video of mine. This is the first time I've ever talked about anything like this at this length. I'm Cloth Shack, and this was my video on Adventure Time. Mathematical!